Welcome to the podcast for online fitness coaches. We're Benji Tucker and Ethan Gonzalez, and together we scaled each of our fitness businesses from 0 to 80K in just 4 months. On this podcast, you'll hear how to get more online fitness clients, make more profit from each of them, how to keep them longer, and the many failures and lessons we have learned on our path to a combined 160K per month. Today, we will be teaching you the exact sales script we use and teach our clients inside the launch program. Guess what? No one fucking does this on the internet at all. We have Ethan here, who is the sales assassin. He is the sales mentor of the two of us. So Ethan, let's get into it and start at why should you get better at sales?
Yeah. So obvious thing is you make more money. Like that's just the blatant fact. Like I think that's probably the simplest answer. But if we dive into the math of it, right? Like let's say on average each month you take 10 calls, right? So you take 10 calls, let's say they all show up, right? Just for simplicity.
Yeah.
Not going to be true, but let's say you have a 100% show rate, 10 calls show up. So out of those 10 calls, if you sell a package for $3,000 and you suck at sales right now and you close 2 people every month. So you take 10 calls and you close 2, you close at 20%. You're making $6,000 a month. Okay. Simple, right? This is just math, but it's the truth. All right. Now let's say you become really good at sales and you start selling 60% of the people that you get on a call with. So 10 people have a call, you close 6 times that same 3K. Now you're making $18,000 every month. And you didn't spend any more on ads. You didn't do any more work. And you took the same exact calls, but you tripled your income. That simple.
You quite literally went from living paycheck to paycheck to living in like the top 2% in the United States. Think about the difference between those two things for a second. You went from paycheck to paycheck to I now have financial freedom. I now have geographical freedom. I don't have to work a 9 to 5. I could travel the world. You went from I can't take of other people because I could barely take care of myself to I could take care of my girlfriend or my wife, and I could start to help my family out if they have it tough too. You went from a loser to the man, 0 to 100 within just by being good at sales and improving those skills with the same funnel metrics on the front end.
Exactly. No difference amount to ad spend, no more leads coming in, the same numbers. Okay. And we could even just go deeper into this where it's like, all right, now that you make more, you can spend more. And next month, you close the same amount of deals, but double because you double your ad spend. Now you're at 36K a month. And then the next month, you're at 72K a month. If you just close deals, then you'll be set. That's it. Sales is basically everything. Like marketing is great to get the leads. You need the leads, but like if you become a master of sales, you can make money no matter what, even with terrible leads.
That's what
still make money.
Everyone freaking complains about the leads, but guess what? You could have shitty leads. It might not be optimal, of course not, but you could still close significantly more than the next person. Like when you have crappy leads, a crappy salesperson will close like 0 of them, right? But if you have 5 crappy leads and you're a really good salesperson, the difference between closing just 1 or 2 more will be an extra 3,000 to 6,000 per month. So we shouldn't just be complaining about the leads. We should be saying, wow, I suck at sales, and take responsibility for it at the end of the day.
Yeah. A lot of people like to just say, oh, it's the leads, and never think it's them. But if you're not closing consistently at like at least 40%, if not more, you're doing something wrong.
Yeah, right. It's not the leads that suck, it's you that sucks.
Yeah, it's you that sucks. And then even if, let's say you start closing at 60, 70%, right? Then you can actually raise your prices. You can actually charge more, make more profit per customer, and still close at a high percentage anyways. So it is probably the biggest needle mover after you get your ads set up to a decent degree. Like if you have no ads running, you got to set up ads. But after that, sales is everything. You are always selling too, because you got to be able to sell the upsell. You got to be able to sell the reoffer. Like all these different back end things are all sales as well. So if you suck at sales, your business could be like a 1/10 of what it could be if you were good at sales.
That's right. And I think every mentor, and I want to get into the script really quick, but I think every mentor teaches the fluff of, hey, like it's going to be amazing. Once you get all these leads and use our strategy, everything will be fine and taken care of. And then that mentor, after 12 months of working with them, gets you all the leads in the world. Guess what? They didn't help you get sales at all, right? They didn't help you improve those skills. Maybe they have one group coaching call per week, but guess what? They hire that person out to like some guy that barely speaks English or actually sucks at sales because they're not willing to put in that work themselves to work with you directly. And you're left, never improving that skill. So
Yeah.
because of that, not only do we do that in our program, but we're on this podcast right now going to give you the entire script we use, why we go through each individual phase. And that's already more information than you're going to pay a mentor like 30K for. So let's get
Yeah.
into.
Yeah. So I'll say for our script, if you guys want this, if you guys actually want the script that we use, just go ahead and message us on Instagram, PT Launchpad. Just message us the word script and we'll send it over to you. So you can actually go through this on the podcast with us. So like you can see the entire script as we go through it. So overall, it's pretty simple. Really, we start in the connection phase. So all you're trying to do at the beginning of the call is really just get confirmation why they're here, basically, and that they have a problem, right? So very, very simple, right? So, hey, can you see me right? Can you hear me? Perfect. And then get them into results-based thinking. Looks like you booked this call to lose about 30 pounds. Is that right? That's it, right? You're not having a conversation about the weather. You're not
Yeah,
talking about your favorite football team. You're not saying like, hey, how's your day going?
yeah.
None of that. Get rid of
Right.
all the fluff. You want this section to be as fast as possible. Get them straight into, hey, you're here to solve this problem. And they're like,
Absolutely.
yes. From there, I typically recommend a soft pre-frame, just something simple. There's some people that teach like, hey, you got to make a decision, yes or no, right on this call right now.
Yes.
And I don't typically recommend that because you just raise a lot of red flags in the prospect's mind right away.
And also what I was gonna touch on that also, like, think about the type of prospects we're working with. We're working with people who typically have low self-esteem, are afraid to
Yeah.
go to the gym, like, people that currently have a very fixed or loserish mindset, and you're the one that has to help them go from point A to point B. So imagine just this scenario where someone's in therapy, and they go to their therapist, and they're like, "I'm a loser." And they're like, "Well, if you're a fucking loser and you're not ready to like, you know what I mean? That's not gonna work. So you have to have a softer frame with these people, but for it to be very concrete and consistent. For me, and this is gonna be probably like less 5% or less of the people watching, you can I did hard frame because it was congruent with my marketing, which was constantly a hard frame. That is
Yeah.
very few people. So I purposely attracted those people and then I was consistent with that on the call. But most of your guys' marketing is not going to be that way. So if your marketing is more soft and a little bit more empathetic towards the person's current position, and then they get on a call and you're like, listen, bro, this is how it's going to be. They're going to be like,
Yeah.
whoa, who is this guy? And they're instantly going to be turned off. You're going to raise red flags, and you're already going to create sales resistance before you even start selling.
Exactly. And so what I'd recommend for everyone is you just want to be the trusted caring advisor on the call, especially when you're talking to fitness people, because we're talking about fitness context, but it's all about being the person's helpful hand in every single situation, right? You're the doctor. You're there to solve the problems. You're there to listen. You're there to understand, and you're there to guide them through this process. So the less sales resistance, obviously, the better. So we want the first section to be done in like a minute. Like you want to get right in the call. The second phase is just current situation. Okay. What we want to do in this phase really is just get the facts, the figures, the details. We don't really need to probe and clarify different things. We don't really need to go deep into their emotional why. We just want to get the facts. Okay. So typically I ask like, what's their age? What's their current weight? What's their goal weight? How long has it been since they were at the goal weight? And why they feel like they've struggled with their weight during that time. Okay. Now, the final question there, why they feel like they've struggled. This is very, very important. You'll get a lot of people who give an excuse. Oh, I was really busy,
It's a
right?
projection already.
Oh, I don't have the time. Oh, my kids, whatever. That's totally fine. You just got to dive a little bit deeper. Okay. So you're just very neutral. You're like, okay, cool. Walk me through like what's been going on the last couple of years. Like, why do you feel like you've been busy? Or did you change your job? Did anything change? Stress, life, whatever. What we want to get to is the deeper problem behind that. Okay. So what happens when you're stressed? Oh, I emotionally eat. Oh, I binge eat. Oh, I don't make the right choices in terms of going to the gym or not going to the gym. Ah, okay. Right. That's a problem. We can solve that. We can't solve I'm busy. We can solve I emotionally eat, or I don't make time for myself at the gym, or I just, they crave certain foods or whatever. right? So we just want to get a real struggle. Okay. The next phase number 3.
I just touch on something
Yeah, of
or
course.
so I just want to say, like, in its very essence, the art of sales, right, is taking someone from their current it's like agitated state and creating separation between that and where they want to go, right? And positioning your ultimate offer as the vehicle that takes them between those two places. You probably heard me say that a lot. So a lot of you guys will ask, like, where are you currently at in your fitness journey? And you want to get a lot more specific. You want to ask, like,
Yeah.
what is your current body weight? Because someone might be like, "Oh, I'm a little overweight," but you find out, no, they're not just a little overweight, like
Mm,
a couple pounds. No, they're like 100 pounds overweight. As an example, we've had people
yeah.
that have not been honest with themselves at all. Same thing goes for what is your goal weight. Like a lot of people, you'll just say, "Well, what's your goal?" Be like, tone up a little bit, and then a lot of you guys will just say, "Okay," move on to the next question. No, you have to get like, no, specifically in an ideal situation, how much would you like to weigh? Or how many pounds of muscle would you like to build? Because then when you have both of those, you say, okay, so is this correct? You're at 250 pounds now and you want to drop down to 200. That's a 50-pound difference, right? All of a
Yep.
sudden, that makes the problem a lot more real. And you could specify what that is. If you don't do that, then sometimes inside the prospect's mind, they don't think they're broken that much. You know what I mean? They
Mhm.
don't think they have as big of a problem as they do.
Yeah. And especially once you get, the two specifics of like what's your current weight, what's your goal weight, you also want to always be asking throughout the conversation, how long? Okay. Super important question that I always ask throughout the conversation. Whenever I'm looking to get more detail, more specifics, elongate a problem, you just ask the time frame. If someone goes, it's been 5 years, it's been 10 years. Okay. It's obviously going to be more important than it's been 3 months.
That's right.
So whenever you get that depth, you can overall expand deeper. It becomes a deeper rooted problem. Now, diving into the problem phase specifically, this is very simple too. We're looking to understand what they've tried and make sure that it's never something they can go back to. Okay. So we want to prevent the DIY objection, which is where they at the end of the call have an inclining that they could do it on their own. If somebody believes they could do it on their own, they will never pay you money.
Yep.
So we want to eliminate every single solution that they've ever tried or think that they could try again. So we typically just ask, what have you tried in the past? Okay, they list out, keto, Weight Watchers, you know, Herbalife, whatever, right? Then you want to get specifics on what actually worked. Okay. Because if you don't know what worked, what didn't work, you're not going to know that they can't do it again. So you're always looking to
Right.
eliminate these things. So, what was the most successful? Okay, keto, I lost 20 pounds, right? Are you still doing keto now? No, I'm not.
Why not?
Why not? Right? Because it's illogical for somebody to say, well, this worked super good. I love keto so much. I lost so much weight. Okay, why aren't you doing it then? Well, actually,
This is
right? And so once we get them to confirm with us that what they tried will not actually work or they don't like it, then we just reaffirm it. Okay, so that isn't something you want to do for the rest of your life. Yes. Great. Now you've basically tied off all these solutions and made them realize I can't go back to keto, can't go back to Weight Watchers, I can't go back to Herbalife. They're never going to go back to those solutions ever again.
Yeah, imagine this island that someone's on, right? Like you're Tom Cruise or Tom Hanks in Castaway or whatever that movie's called, and you're looking out into the island and you think, "Oh, there's a boat there that could save me. There's a boat there that could save me." Right? And you think those are my plausible options I could go towards, and they just drive away. Like your goal is to
Yeah,
take those boats and move them away from them so you're the only person that could airlift them out of that island. Like you need to create
exactly.
that much dire necessity.
Yeah. And I even think that maybe the boats don't drive away. Maybe the boats explode. like,
That's right, yeah.
like you're sitting here on the island, like, oh my gosh, this is an option. And it just blows up. You're like, all right, well,
No,
I
maybe
can't
they
do
can
that.
come back, but if they blow up, those boats can't
Yeah.
come back.
They can never come back.
Yeah.
So at this point, too, you want to be listening to the prospect. This is something that I find a lot of people miss. They don't really listen to the words the prospect's saying or what they mean by them. So throughout the conversation, be actively listening, understanding, and overall, ask these questions in a curious tone. Okay. So I'm going to explain this a little bit just in the psychology of sales. But if you ask a question like, okay, how much did you lose? Right. See how much speed, how much like aggression I came with that, or like, and I guess like how much did you end up losing doing that? right? I'm just more curious. I'm more neutral. I'm more like, oh, yeah, it's relaxed. Somebody will give you better answers than that. So when we're listening to them, when we're understanding what they've tried, what hasn't worked, what isn't going to work, we also want to reaffirm what is important to them. So if they say keto wasn't sustainable, right? Okay, so having something that was overall more sustainable, that's important to you. They're going to say yes to. Okay. They're going to agree that they're looking for something more sustainable. Now, you're not selling them. Don't sell them until you pitch. You're just reaffirming that it's important. And later on, when you do pitch, you'll pitch about sustainability and it'll tie everything together. Okay.
Absolutely. And just to touch on tonality a little bit, a lot of times it's not exactly what you say, it's how you say it that's even more important. And that
Yeah.
will elicit the type of response that you want. Because a lot of times people will go through the entire call, they'll pitch, and then an objection will come up. Like, oh, I've already worked with a coach before. And it's like, how did this person not tell me that already? Well, the
Mhm.
reason why is because you did not have the therapy session type frame and tonality. Instead, it was, how you said it before, and why didn't you lose this weight? Well, to
Yeah.
someone who has a lot of walls, built up in and is afraid to kind of divulge information because maybe they were done wrong by a fitness coach before,
Mhm.
or maybe they've had things happen to them in their past that make them less open human beings because there is a lot of those that people with
Yeah.
problems, whatever. Well, then they're going to prevent themselves from divulging that information from you. And then you're not going to have all the ammo required to be able to paint that gap and for that pitch to be the solution to their problem because they're not actively speaking those problems into existence.
Definitely. Definitely. You need to make sure that you're talking to your prospect in the way that makes them feel like fully understood, right? So if you're talking to women, you're obviously going to have to be more emotional. If you're talking to men, you're still going to have to be emotional, but you're going to be less emotional and probably just more curious. Probably just going to be more curious about their situation, especially with people who are like very type A. They come out with a bunch of
Yeah.
aggression. If you come back with aggression, what do you think that's going to cause them to do? Fight right back. Versus if you just come in curious, you're like, well, man, like, I mean, you booked this call with me. Like, what made you want to do that? Oh,
Yeah.
well, it's actually this, this, and this. Okay. So like, let's talk about that. And then you're good.
Absolutely. Something I was never good at, and Ethan was very as it also depends how depressed they are, like, as a guy.
Yeah.
If they're,
Yeah.
like, the most depressed people ever, you can get them like, Ethan and I guess to talk about this phase even more, around this point, we have already gotten people to cry physical tears on the call, like, both men and women.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Definitely getting some of that emotion out. Now, I will say, like, one of the most important things that I've talked about with some of the members inside of our community is that during these initial phases, so like phase one, which is the, just context, current situation, problem phase, we don't want to burn all of our emotion though. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll explain what that means. So we don't want to dive into all their pain points, all the problem, like all the little, like, oh, you're doing this for your kids. Like, why not? We don't want to talk about that just yet. Right.
Late.
Because if someone talks about it now, you won't have the ammo later.
Mm,
Right. And so they've already told you that they need to do it for their kids, but you need to ask about their kids at a very specific point because you want to draw that emotion up. You want to drop them right down really quick
yeah.
and then you pitch, right? So there's a timing to the script. When you guys are going through it on this podcast, you'll be able to see it. But really, just to wrap out the problem phase here, we just want to understand why they are looking for help. Okay. This is one of the most important questions, right? After we've tied off all the problems, we've gotten them to realize that they can't do it on their own and they need help. We want to just clarify that. So, this you'll say skeptically. Okay. Help me to understand why you might look at getting some outside help with this instead of maybe just like trying to figure it out by yourself. At this point right here, you need them to say, I don't know what to do. And you're good. You already now are the trusted advisor. You're the only person who can solve their problem because nothing that they tried before will ever work again.
Now, what if they
Very
still
important.
try to say, like, just to play devil's advocate here, there's gonna be
Yeah,
some people that still say, "Well, I could still try this thing," right?
sure.
Where they still have a little bit of belief they could do it on their own. Now, that might mean, in part, that you didn't do the phase properly before that point,
Mhm.
but what do you do to sort of save that and make sure that you get them to admit that, they can't
They
do it on
can't do it. Yeah. So this is something that's really important. Good question to ask. So you'll want to handle it here. You don't want to wait. You don't want to push past it. Okay. So how to actually handle this is you'll want to get down to logistics and very, very specific things. Okay. So if somebody says, well, I mean, I feel like I could get some help, but I might want to try this again. Okay. Well, what'd you do then? Oh, I tried keto. Right. Okay. How long did you do it for? I did it for 6 months. Okay. How much weight did you lose? I lost 10 pounds. Okay. So you lost 10 pounds in 6 months and you realize their overall goal is to lose 50 pounds. Okay. So for you, it would take you 30 months to get to your goal by doing keto. Is that the pace you want to be on? Or do you feel like you might want quicker results? Well, I might want quicker results. Okay. Why do you want quicker results though? Why not wait 30 months? Well, that's 3 years. That's a long time. Okay. So like having something that got you quicker results, that would be important to you. Yes. Do you feel like you want to stay with keto? Nah, I guess I don't. And then they move on,
Yep.
right? So it's all about getting to specifics. When somebody tells you, oh, I love this thing, this was amazing, and they're not doing it now, they don't actually love it.
It's not amazing. And
It's not amazing.
yeah, and it's not gonna get them to where they wanna be. So I think the key
Exactly.
thing with this phase, honestly, is that and this goes really for all phases, that you don't wanna move to the next phase until you have what you actually need. And in this
Yes.
phase, what you actually need is that for them to admit very, openly that they cannot get to their point B without you.
Yes, exactly. And if there's any suspicion that they might be able to, you have to make sure you handle it because the worst thing that you can get is you get to the end of the call and someone's like, ah, I don't know. And you just get a value objection.
Mm,
And it's like, at this point, you missed it. You're done. So making sure you get the right answer out of that question is super important. Super, super important. Now, diving into the next section. This is the challenge phase. Okay. So we're really just going to look at calling out any red flags that they had in the past, any limiting beliefs, any fear, skepticism, things like that. Okay. We're also going to want to understand like, have they ever gotten help before? When was the last time they got help? Very simple stuff if you don't know this already. So if they've never worked with a coach, you might just ask, have you ever gotten help from a coach before? Right. If they say overall, no, I never have, you just ask simply, why not? All right. It's a very simple question, but you have to understand the why behind them not getting help. So they say, why not? Then you basically just dive into why now, right? So they hadn't in the past. There's a reason why. Okay. So what makes now different though? They give their why now. Now, their why now is where the emotion starts to come out. So
like,
they'll typically say something along the lines of my kids, my health, my energy, my stress,
"I have
my life.
diabetes, my arms are
Yeah.
gonna get chopped off."
Like whatever it may be, they'll bring it up right here. Okay. This ties into the next phase, which is the emotional phase. Okay. During the emotional phase, this is where you want to get all the juicy answers, where you get them to cry even harder. Like this is a
This is it.
spot to really dive into
This
things.
is the
Get,
cry spot.
get them to realize that like this is a deep rooted problem. Okay. How you're going to do this is you got to get current pain. Okay. What I mean by current pain is like what's happening today. Okay. So, how is this problem affecting them today? How is having 50 pounds affecting them today? Right. They may say something along the lines of, oh, my joints hurt, my kids, or honestly, just not being there for my family, or whatever they say. Okay. Then you want to get context on how often those problems are actually happening. Right. So, again, this is all about making that pain more real and a deeper rooted problem. So when they say, oh, my kids, okay. And like, how often do you find that you're not able to be there for your kids in the way that you want to? Oh, every single day. Right. If someone says the problem is every single day versus every couple months, how much more painful is that problem? Unbelievably more painful. Then you ask what type of things are really going on in those situations and how long again, right? So if it's been going on every day, how long has it been going on every day? A year, 2 years, 3 years? All these things are all focusing on elongating that pain.
Yeah.
Do you have anything to say on that, Benji?
I think you did a pretty good job. I think this is the most I've not spoken in a podcast, so
Yeah. Because we mainly talk about marketing. So
Yeah,
this is a little
absolutely.
different.
Because like, when I always did my script, I had, like, a rougher frame, whereas Ethan has it, very banged out, and I think that's a great thing, right? Because I had an
Yeah.
innate ability, and what Ethan's teaching is even better than what I was doing, right? But the biggest thing that I would personally do, and I think just generally it relates to this, is I would just try to get people to understand, this well, to be fair, I'm just gonna let you cook on the next phase because it
Yeah.
exactly relates to the next phase, so go
Yeah.
for it.
So the next phase really is just future pacing them. So we have overall, we have the problem, we have the goal, we have the current pain, we have the way that this is affecting them. And now all we're going to talk about is what life would look like if we were to solve all these issues. Okay. So in 6 months' time, if we were able to reduce your A1C, get you off being pre-diabetic, we are able to help you be there for your kids more. Like every single problem they mentioned, to the best ability, we solved everything. How would your life be different than it is today? Oh, it'd be life changing, is what they're going to say. It'd be amazing. They are on the moon, right? Now you ask, like, what would that actually look like? How would you feel? Like, all these different things. Talk about their ideal state. From there, you get into one of the most important questions, which is the cost of an action. Okay. So I'd say probably the three most important questions throughout this are the question that we talked about in the problem phase, basically, which is basically why not do it on your own? Okay. We also have the why now question. And now we're going to have the cost of an action question. Okay. The cost of an action, the whole point is to like bury them into the ground with how bad
Yeah.
they're going to feel. Right. So
This
go
is the
from like,
deep drop of a song, by the way, like, you know what I mean?
yeah,
It really is.
go from like the super high to the super low. So you want to basically say, what happens if you don't actually get help? And these problems that we just said would be so good if you solved them, actually got so much worse
Yeah.
and so much worse and so much worse. What would happen then?
Mhm. You know what you're
And
doing in this situation too is, like, you're
yeah,
creating, like, a dopamine reward prediction error, like, in real time.
yeah,
It's the equivalent of, "Hey, I got you tickets, we're going to the game, I'm really, really excited, I've been waiting," and then, "Oh, sorry, like, last second, I can't make it. There was an issue, we're not going to the game anymore." So it's real high, and then, "Oh, shit, that sucks."
yeah,
Like, imagine if you had someone envisioning in their brain, "Well, like, I'm gonna be healthy, I'll be able to travel with my wife and kids, and, we're gonna be walking through the middle of Italy, eating ice cream and
yeah.
gelato," and then, okay, well, what if that doesn't happen? And what if, like, your diabetes gets so much worse that you get, like, your leg chopped off, like your doctor says is gonna happen, and you can't do that anymore, and they're like, "What?" Like,
Well, exactly.
yeah.
Exactly, that's a great visual. Is that, like, you want them to realize, like, all these amazing things, like, oh, imagine, like, you're playing with your kid and your kid you can keep up with them, and then imagine your legs don't work anymore.
Yeah.
Like, imagine you can't play with your kids ever again. You're
Yeah.
bedridden, you're on the hospital bed, like, for the rest of your life. How would you feel then? That's the answer that you want. You want them to be like, "Oh, geez, like, I don't want that to happen. That would be awful." You need them to give a horrible answer here. Right? I've had women that I'm talking to about these problems, and they literally cut me off. They're like, "Ethan, I don't wanna go there. Like, it can't." Right? I say,
Right?
"Hey, you're gonna go from a size 10 to a size 12 to a size 16," and they're like, "Oh, it's never gonna happen. Never let that happen." Right?
Yeah.
So you want them to actively be, like, so disgusted with that reality, like, they never wanna happen, okay? From there, you just wanna get commitment, be like, "Alright, so it's really time to make changes then." Yes. And from there, all you'll have to do is you'll just have to pitch. Okay. Do you feel like you want to talk? Do you want to talk on pitch, Benji, or do you feel like that we talk about that on another episode?
I think we could give, like, a very just, like, rough frame about, like, what the pitch looks like, not like,
Sure.
giving the entire step by step, but I think it would be very beneficial to just explain how long the pitch should be because people draw it out,
Yeah.
and just some general, tips on that.
Okay. So I'll preface this by saying you'll want to overall be following kind of our VSL framework. Okay. If you don't know how to use the VSL framework, become a launch client. Easiest way to learn how to do it. But launch framework for our VSL is basically that we want to talk about all the program specifics in the VSL. We want to get that info out of the way because here's something that's contrary to popular belief. Your solution that you believe is amazing could actually be positive for somebody or negative. Okay. You may be thinking, oh, you get a weekly call with me if that's your program. You get a weekly one on one call. A really rich person who has no time will think, dude, I got to talk weekly with this guy. I don't fucking do that. Like, I got no time for this
I don't
program. I
need
can't do it. I don't need it. Versus somebody who's on the other end of the spectrum, super broke, might be like, oh, I have all the time in the world. That would be amazing for me. So you're actually disqualifying the highest level prospects by talking about the specifics of your program in most cases. Or you have a prospect who's like super high quality candidate and they're like, oh, I will never track my food, but tracking their food is necessary for the program. And you talk about tracking food, they're going to go ahead and say, I don't want to do the program. So
Yeah.
in terms of pitching,
I cut you
yeah,
off.
yeah,
Like, I was just gonna say, guys, Ethan just spelled out the exact phrase of you don't wanna sell the vacation, or sorry, you want to always sell the
yes,
vacation, not the plane flight. And, like, to if you haven't heard this metaphor before, imagine someone said, "Hey, you're gonna go to Hawaii, and you're gonna be on this beach sipping a margarita, and there's gonna be, like, all these good-looking girls there." Like, "Oh, that's amazing," right? And then let's say, hey, I got you tickets and it's going to be like a 20-hour plane flight and the seats are going to be real crammed, but like at the end of it, it'll be cool. That's a very different frame, right? Both of
yeah,
those things will objectively happen, but what twist are we going to put on it?
exactly. So the most important thing, as Benji's saying, is talking about the vacation, the ideal things about what life they want to live versus talking about the deliverables of the program. So the way that we pitch, and if you ask for the script, we'll send it over to you on Instagram. Basically, we want to talk about how effective the program is going to be for them, how enjoyable it's going to be, and that we provide them support and accountability. Okay. If you make sure that you explain that the program is going to work for them without going into detail on what actually happens, just like it's a plan built for you, it's going to work for you. You know, if you're seeing results from day one to the end of the program, will you be happy with that? Right? Like all these different steps. If they actually love the things they're doing and they don't have to do anything they hate, do you feel like you could stick with that? They're going to say yes. There's a lot of questions that we ask, and we overall just want to make the program seem as simple as possible, as easy for someone to do. Whether the person has no time, whether the person has all the time in the world, everyone can succeed with the program because it's true. Like you guys are good coaches. So we want to make sure that in their mind, they don't believe at all for a second of a doubt that the program would not work for them. They want to have full certainty. Okay. Once
And here's
you've
if they
pitched,
believe that they could get the result, then it doesn't matter how the hell they get the result. That's
exactly.
it.
Yeah. Like I don't think that people care about how cool your certifications are or how cool you have certain things set up. They really just care they're going to lose the weight or not. I think I
Yeah,
feel better.
anything that'll work to your detriment, and that's what Ethan was touching on
Yeah.
before. If you're like, "I have this certification, I help you do, like, hyperbolics," like, you just, like, go into, like, very scientific vernacular, they're gonna be lost, right?
Yeah.
Because that doesn't mean anything to them. In fact, they've probably already worked with multiple doctors that were so proclaimed experts before and got screwed over
Mhm.
by them, so they actually look at that as a negative. So,
Yeah.
how do you repel yourself from that? Is you show them you convince them wholeheartedly that you just get them the result. That's it. That's your task in the
Yeah.
pitch.
And what I've actually found, like, just to touch on this a little bit deeper, that like when you talk about the specifics of the program in the pitch, if they are sold into the program and they buy it, they're going to be less likely to be successful than somebody who's just told that the program is going to work for them. And then they get into the program and there's some things that they might not like, but you tell them, hey, this will get you the result. They'll still do it.
Yeah, they
Versus
already paid.
people, they already paid. They have to do it, right? It's just that's where the program is. And it won't be deceptive in any way because it's like you want this result, you have to do 10,000 steps a day, right? Versus if you're in the pitch, you're saying you got to do 10,000 steps a day. That's scary. That's hard. They don't want to do that. So they're not going to do it. So you have to just make it seem simple and then still make it simple. Like the program's not hard, but it's like in their mind, they have to believe that it's easy.
Yeah, we're not being deceptive, but there is a part of, like, we tell them things that sound like great, like, we tell them things that they want, and then we really give them what they need inside of the
Yeah.
program, and because it gets them to the result they want, they're gonna be very grateful because of that.
Yeah. They're not going to care. They're not going to care at the end of the day. So after you've pitched, it's pretty simple. You just want to check for fear. Okay. So you want to be very uncertain when you ask this question, uncertain tone. So I guess like you feel like this could be the answer for you, right? You don't want to come off with like, do you feel like this is going to work for you? See how there's a difference in the tone that I use there. Very important. If you say, do you feel like this could be the answer for you? What response are you going to get every single time? Because they're trying to be nice. Yes, of course I do. Versus if you act uncertain, you kind of mess up on your words a little bit, they may be like, well, they'll either still say yes, or they'll say, well, maybe not this, or maybe not this. And you just got to get certainty. Okay. Then you'll ask, like, why do you feel like it works? Okay. So if you feel like you had this, this, and this, that would put you in the best position to be successful. Yes. Cool. You've kind of covered all those bases. Your pitch went well. You have certainty. And from here, you really just price drop. That's about it. Like, you just go into closing, you price drop, and then you handle any objections that come up if necessary.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess you could technically consider that a phase, the objection handling phase. The idea is you
Yeah.
preemptively strike sort of the obstacles before they become objections. We'll talk about the main objections that we get and how to handle those in another episode.
Yeah. And I'd say for the vast majority of people, okay, like for me specifically, like when I'm closing at, if you're closing at a very high percentage, you're obviously not getting objections, right? So I'm closing at 60, 70%. And that's 60, 70% without me spending 2 hours on calls talking to them about, oh, well, we could move this money around, or we could
Yeah,
talk to
how
your
long should
partner.
this
Like,
take, Ethan? This whole
oh,
process, how long is it?
okay. So to get to the pitch, about 20 minutes. So I get through the entire discovery in 20. Pitch takes about 5. I finish the call at like 30.
Yeah. And for guys
Like,
that are new to this, it might take you longer to work
yeah,
through things more, and maybe you'll get more objections. For certain type A people, it might take longer to break those walls down at each phase. But think about it. The average call that Ethan's doing to get to the pitch is 30 minutes by the
yeah.
time it's like finishing up. So that's a huge, a tremendous difference between him and the people who are taking an hour, 2 hours
Mhm.
plus on all these sales calls. Hey, by all
Yeah.
means, do that if that's what it takes, but it shouldn't be taking that long on average.
No, and the biggest thing is I probably am selling twice or 3 times more expensive than they are in terms of
Yeah.
program price. Like, I'm selling 4,800 for 6 months, and they get closed in 30 minutes, and you're selling 1,000
Mhm.
for 6 months, and they're getting closed in 2 hours.
Yeah, think
It's
about the
like,
return on Ethan's time, and also you have to think about the perspective of a rich person, is that they
yeah,
value time, speed, and efficiency. They don't wanna be on a call with you for an hour plus because they've got shit to do and money to make.
yep. And just to reframe again kind of the time of your call, because I was somebody who took an hour and a half average on every call that I took. So what you want to really think about in these situations is the shorter the call, the more impactful the call, right? A lot of people think you have to have a long drawn out conversation. I've had calls that were 20 minutes and they piffed for 4,800. So the reality is the quicker you can go through the phases, as long as you get all the information, the better. Because you'll get the dopamine hit quicker, where it's like very, very high, very low, low, pitch, buy, very fast.
Yeah.
Versus think about how less impactful it would be if you spent an hour in that section and you're talking to them about, oh, all these different things about how great life would look like. And then you're talking about all the bad things. And then your pitch takes 15 minutes and all
You
that
already
emotion
got
is
that
gone.
emotion. Yeah.
Exactly. All that emotion is gone. And so now when you drop the price, here comes all these objections, all these problems when they could have been avoided if you just followed through what we're talking about today. Super, super important, guys. So to wrap up this episode here, I wanted to just briefly recap everything that we went over. So we went over the different stages of the call, why each stage in the call is actually important, how to actually conduct your calls in terms of like not framing your prospects super hard and just being more neutral, the type of tonality to use, and overall how to get somebody closed for $5,000 in 30 minutes. Okay. So I want to say thank you overall for watching this episode of the podcast for online fitness coaches. If you want to learn how we can get you 20 clients in the next 6 months, guaranteed, or we give you all your money back plus $5,000, just go ahead and message us client on Instagram at PT Launchpad. Spelled out with no spaces, no nothing, just PT Launchpad. Just send us the message client and we'll reach out with some more information on that guarantee.
Absolutely. Take care, guys. Thanks for listening.
Take care.